The joke that wasn't funny asterisk the alien girl named. Varaya had always been playful and a little proud. She came from a noble bloodline. Her ancestors were great warriors and her family had guarded their sacred hall for over 1,000 years. No human had ever been allowed to enter that place, not until now. Jess was a human boy who had come to their planet as part of an interspecies exchange program. He was quiet, polite, and always curious. He asked too many questions sometimes, and Varaya found that funny. He did not belong in their world, but he never acted like he was better than anyone. That was rare for a humans, so when Varaya invited Jace to see the Hall of Ancients, it was not because she respected him. She just wanted to play a small joke. She wanted to see the look on his face when he saw the legendary armor of her ancestor, General Kareth, the Stormbearer. It stood in the center of the hall, tall, strong, and glowing faintly with power. No one had worn it for generations. Not even Varaya's father could make it move. The armor was alive in some way, and it chose who could wear it. Only a true heir of Kareth was worthy. They entered the quiet hall together. The stone walls were covered in battle carvings. Glowing blue lines ran through the floor like veins, and the armor stood waiting, as if watching them go ahead. Varaya said with a smile, "Try it on." Human Jace laughed nervously. "Are you serious?" "Yes." "Go on," she said teasingly. "Just touch it, and it will throw you across the room. Maybe that will teach you some respect." Jace stepped closer. He felt a strange pull in his chest, like the air had become thick. Like the armor was not just metal, but something more. He reached out slowly. Varaya folded her arms, waiting for the spark. The rejection, the funny moment. But then something happened. Armor pulsed. A soft hum filled the hall. Jace's fingers brushed the edge of the chest plate, and it moved on its own. Plate's unfolded arms snapped into place. The helmet floated up and landed gently on his head. The floor shook. Lights above flickered. Blue light raced through the armor's body like lightning. Then the entire hall went silent. Jace stood frozen inside the armor, completely covered. It had wrapped around him like it had been waiting just for him. Varaya took a step back. Her mouth opened, but no words came. She was not smiling now. Jace turned to face her. His voice sounded deeper, altered by the armor. "Did I do something wrong?" Before she could answer, he dropped to his knees. His body shook and his eyes rolled back. He collapsed to the ground with a loud thud. Varaya rushed forward. "What have I done?" she whispered. This was supposed to be a joke. Guards rushed in, alerted by the energy spike. They stopped in shock, seeing the human lying inside the sacred armor. One of them spoke in fear. "The armor has awakened. It has chosen, but it chose a human." Word spread quickly across the temple, across the city, and across the stars. The sacred armor that had rejected Varaya's entire bloodline had bonded with an off-worlder, a boy from Earth. In the quiet of the hall, while medics checked on Jace, the armor glowed faintly, as if it was alive again, and somewhere deep inside the armor a voice whispered, "Welcome back, heir of Flame." Varaya watched in silence. Her joke had turned into something else, something ancient and powerful, and she had no idea what she had just started. Asterisk bloodline error or chosen one. Asterisk Jace lay motionless on the crystal floor of the Hall of Ancients. The armor still wrapped around him tight, as if guarding its treasure. The alien medics couldn't remove it. No matter what they tried, the plate stayed locked, glowing softly like they were. Breathing. Varaya sat beside him, her face pale, her playful nature was gone. Now she looked scared. Every few seconds she checked if Jace was still alive. His chest rose slowly, and his fingers switched, but he didn't wake up. The elders arrived soon after. The Grand Historian, the Temple Keeper, and even Varaya's mother, General Ethelyn, entered the chamber. Their footsteps echoed with authority, but their faces carried something else. Confusion and fear. "You let him wear it?" Ethelyn asked coldly, staring at her daughter. "It was a joke," Varaya whispered. "I thought he would get shocked like the others. I didn't know it would accept him." "The armor has not accepted anyone in 6 generations, the historian said in a low voice. "And never a human." They circled Jace cautiously. One elder waved a scanning wand over his body and stepped back in shock. "The neural link is complete," the elder said. The armor is fused with his nervous system. It is speaking to him through direct thoughts. So it believes he is one of us, another whispered, or worse, Ethelyn added. It believes. He is something more. Suddenly, Jace gasped, his body jolted upright. His eyes snapped open, glowing faintly blue for a moment, before fading back to normal. He looked around, breathing hard. Where am I? He asked. What happened? Varaya rushed to his side. Jace. You're okay. You fainted. The armor, it did something. He touched his chest and felt the smooth, cool metal still clinging to him. The helmet had melted away, revealing his face, but the rest of the armor was still fused to his body. I saw things, he said quietly. I saw a war, burning skies, soldiers, flying creatures in golden armor. A voice spoke to me. It called me heir of flame. All the elders turned slowly. Their eyes widened. The hall became deathly quiet. You heard the voice? Ethelyn asked. What did it say? It said, it's been waiting. It said I have to finish something. I didn't start. Jace said. He looked at Varaya. I don't understand any of this. Varaya swallowed hard. Neither do I. The historian stepped forward and opened a large holographic scroll floating in the air. It showed images of ancient warriors. One of them looked nearly human, wearing the same armor as Jasithir. Was once an alliance, the historian began, between your kind and ours. Thousands of years ago, during the War of Splinter, Sun's human warriors stood beside our ancestors. They were brave, strong, and feared by all, but something happened. Ethelyn continued. After the war ended, the humans left, or were erased from our records. We thought the armor was created only for our bloodline, but now it seems we were wrong. You think I'm one of them? Jace asked. You may carry their spark. The historian said. The armor never leaves. Varaya stepped forward. He's not ready for this. He's just a student. That's not your choice anymore. Ethelyn replied. The armor has chosen. He must be tested. Just looked up. Tested for what? To see if you are worthy of keeping it, Ethelyn said coldly. Or if it must be taken back, by force if needed. Suddenly, the room trembled. A deep sound like a heartbeat echoed from the walls. Lights flickered, and the armor on Jace's body pulsed again. The historian raised his voice. The trial of flame has already begun. The armor has initiated the path. The human must walk it. Jace stared at his hands still covered in ancient metal. What happens if I fail? Varaya answered before anyone else could. You die. Silence fell again. Ethelyn turned and signaled the guards. Prepare the sacred chamber. The trial begins at dawn. They all left slowly, one by one, until only Varaya and Jace remained in the great hall. She sat beside him again and lowered her voice. I didn't mean for this to happen. I really thought it was just a joke. Jace smiled weakly. You've got a strange sense of humor. He tried to laugh, but the moment felt heavy. His hands shook slightly, and the armor hummed like it could feel his fear. Do you think I can pass this trial? He asked. Varaya hesitated. I don't know, but the armor picked you, and that means something. She reached out and touched his armored shoulder softly. I'll help you, Jace. No matter what. The armor pulsed again, as if it heard her words and approved. In the shadows of the hall, a forgotten destiny had begun to rise, and the galaxy would soon learn that ancient power had finally found its new host. The test of honor begins. The temple of trial stood on the edge of a cliff carved into the mountain face, where clouds kissed the rocks below. The wind howled like distant spirits, and glowing stones lit the narrow path leading to the sacred gate. Only the chosen could pass through it, and now a human walked that path alone. Jace's footsteps were slow. The armor on his body had grown heavier since morning. It pulsed quietly with a strange rhythm, like a second heartbeat in his chest. With every step he felt flashes in his mind, old memories that weren't his. 1,000-year-old battle, a storm that raged for weeks, a sword of pure light slicing through a metal beast. He stopped at the gate and looked back. Varaya stood behind him, her arms crossed, worry in her eyes. You don't have to go in there alone, she said softly. I think I do, he replied. If I fail this trial, they'll rip the armor off me, or kill me trying. You shouldn't even be wearing it, she whispered. You're not from our world. This is not your history, not your blood. Maybe not, he said, but something in this armor believes I belong. The gate cracked open by itself. The stone shifted, revealing a deep hall full of firelight and shadows. Jace took a deep breath and stepped. Inside the chamber, the air was warm and heavy. Rows of alien warriors made of shimmering energy stood silently like statues. They were not real, but their presence felt alive. Their eyes watched him as he passed at the center of the chamber. Floated the trial core, a spinning crystal that glowed red. It sensed his approach, and suddenly a voice echoed all around you. Wear the flame armor not by blood, but by spark. To keep it you must prove you carry its fire. Only honor, truth, and courage shall guide you forward. Step forward and face the echo of flame without. Warning, the floor vanished beneath his feet, and Jace fell down into darkness. He hit the ground hard and looked up in confusion. He was in a massive circular arena. Walls of black stone surrounded him, and strange runes pulsed in every direction. Then he saw a tall, armored figure stood across the arena. It looked just like the old carvings he had seen in the Hall of Ancients. It wore a helmet shaped like a dragon's skull and carried a burning spear in one hand. Voice returned, "This is your first trial, the trial of honor. You must not fight to win. You must fight to protect. Only when you defend the weak shall your armor unlock its first flame." Suddenly a flicker of light appeared in the center of the arena. A small alien child crouched, crying, blindfolded and unarmed. The armored enemy began to charge forward. Spear glowing hot. Just froze for a moment, confused and afraid. The armor vibrated on his chest, urging him to move. He dashed forward faster than he thought possible, jumping over a broken slab and sliding in front of the child. Enemy raised its spear and swung. Jace raised his arms to block, expecting pain. But instead the armor reacted. A golden shield appeared around him, stopping the attack with a loud blast. The energy echoed across the arena. Jace grabbed the child and ran behind a column. The enemy vanished into smoke, then appeared again from the other side. It was testing him not just with power but with fear and choice. Again and again the enemy attacked, and again Jace defended, never striking first, never leaving the child's side. The armor grew brighter, each time like it was feeding off his decision to protect, not to destroy. After one final strike, when Jace held the child tight with both arms, a beam of blue flame shot from his chest, sending the enemy flying back across the arena. The voice returned, softer, "Now you chose to protect, not to conquer. The first flame accepts your heart." The enemy knight vanished. The child faded into mist, and the arena began to shake. Jace fell to his knees, panting. His armor now had a small glowing symbol near the shoulder, a mark of completion. When he opened his eyes again, he was back in the trial hall, standing alone. The other warriors made of light bowed their heads as he walked past them. Varia rushed toward him, outside, her eyes wide. "You passed." She paused and looked at his shoulder. The first mark. Jace gave a small nod. "I didn't even fight back, I just protected someone." She touched the symbol glowing on his armor. "That's exactly what the Flame Knights were meant to do," she said softly. "They were not killers, they were guardians." He looked up at the sky, dark clouds gathering near the horizon. "Something tells me this was just the beginning." She nodded. "You're right. The next trial won't be so forgiving." And as they stood at the edge of the cliff again, the wind carried whispers from the stars. Ancient forces had noticed the armor's return, and they were already on the move. Surviving the trial arena, the second trial began, not with ceremony, but with silence. Jace awoke alone inside a vast stone dome. The walls were smooth and dark like volcanic glass. The ceiling showed a night sky filled with unfamiliar stars. It felt like he had been dropped into a forgotten part of the universe. He stood slowly, his armor glowing faintly from the last trial. The mark of protection still shimmered on his shoulder. But this time there was no voice, no guide, no warning. Suddenly the floor rumbled, a loud crack split the ground, and from the center a shape began to rise. Something large, something breathing. Jace took a step back, his eyes wide, as the arena shifted beneath his feet. He watched as a massive creature pulled itself out of the stone. It was a beast of bone and fire. 4 legs, claws like blades, and a face that looked more like a skull than anything living. Its ribs glowed with molten light, and every breath it took filled the air with heat. Then the voice returned deep and cold. The trial of courage begins. Do not run, face what you fear most, and hold your ground. This is the test of the inner flame. The beast let out a roar that shook the walls. It charged Jace with impossible speed. He barely had time to roll aside. The ground where he stood exploded into fire. Armor reacted faster than his thoughts. It formed a temporary shield over his back, taking most of the heat. But Jace still felt the pressure. In his chest, he got to his feet and began moving around the edge of the arena, watching the beast searching for a weakness. But it never slowed. Its glowing ribs flickered like lava, and its claws could cut through stone. Jace knew he couldn't outrun it forever, and the voice had said not to run. The armor buzzed again, and a vision flashed in his mind, a memory from the armor's past. A young warrior standing against a sky beast, holding a flaming spear. His feet didn't move even when death flew toward him. Courage wasn't about winning. It was about choosing not to run. Jace took a deep breath and walked to the center of the arena. The beast noticed him and roared again, charging with fire leaking from its jaws. This time Jace didn't dodge. He stood firm, letting the armor adjust around his legs, the plates locking tight into place. He raised both arms as the beast lunged. A new energy surged through the armor. It formed a shield not in front of him, but around him, a full circle of glowing light erupted as the beast struck with all its strength. Impact sent a shockwave across the arena, but Jace didn't fall. The beast roared in frustration. It circled him again and tried once more to strike harder, faster, but Jace stayed still, his breathing steady, his eyes forward. And then the beast stopped. It stood still, chest rising and falling. The fire in its ribs dimmed. Its claws lowered, and slowly it began to bow. Jace blinked in surprise. Unsure if it was a trick, the voice echoed again. Calm and proud, you showed courage not by strength, but by choice. You did not run. The second flame is lit. The beast began to break apart, turning into ash that rose into the air like sparks. The ash swirled around. Jace then vanished into the armor. A new symbol appeared just above his heart. A second glowing mark. The arena faded, and suddenly he was back standing at the mountain's edge. The temple behind him, Virea was already there, waiting, her eyes scanning him head to toe. You survived, she said softly. You faced the echo beast and lived it. Didn't kill me, he said quietly. I didn't fight it. I just stood still. Virea nodded. That's what the trial was about, not fear of death. Fear of staying when running is easier. He looked at the new symbol on his chest. So what happens now? Virea looked away toward the stars. Something's coming, she said. I can feel it. The High Council is hiding something. But now that you have 2 marks, they can't deny it anymore. Jace asked that the armor chose you for a reason, that the old wars are not over, and that something is waking up. Jace looked into the night sky. His heart was steady, but his thoughts were not. The armor felt more alive now. It hummed like it was ready, like it had more to give. In deep within the stars, beyond even the ancient maps, dark ships began to move, silent, powerful, watching the return of the heir of flame. The forgotten human history. Jace sat alone in the temple's archive, wings surrounded by floating scrolls, glowing symbols, and whispering lights. The walls were filled with old records sealed in alien language. Most of it he couldn't read, but the armor could. It softly translated the words in his mind, showing him pieces of the truth that no one ever spoke out loud. He had passed 2 trials. The armor had accepted him twice. The elders said nothing, but their silence felt heavy. Jace knew they were hiding something big, something ancient and dangerous. Virea entered the archive, her face tense. She walked quickly and sat beside him, her eyes darting around as if afraid someone might listen. I stole this, she whispered, pulling out a cracked memory crystal. I found it in my grandfather's chamber. It was marked as restricted. Jace held it carefully. The armor pulsed once, sensing its energy. Then the crystal activated, floating in the air. A projection appeared in front of them. It showed a massive battlefield, sky full of fire. Humans fighting beside aliens wearing the same armor Jace now wore. Their faces were fierce, their movements perfect. These were not weak allies. They were warriors, heroes, legends then. Something changed, the vision. Darkened, the same humans were now running. Their alien allies had turned against them. Spears through backs, flames burning camps. The betrayal was quick, brutal. Complete just stared at the scene, his jaw tight. They were allies once, he said softly. What happened? The armor answered him directly in thought. The humans burned too bright. Our strength grew faster than they expected. They feared us, feared that we would one day rule instead of serve. Viraya looked shocked. She had never heard the armor speak. Before, to her it was only metal, but Jace's bond was different, deeper. So they erased it all, he said. They wiped out every human record from your history. They lied to everyone. Last of the flame bearers hid one armor in the stars, the armor whispered. Waiting for the return of the worthy. You think I'm that return? Jace asked out loud. You carry the echoes of their blood, it said, and the fire has chosen you. Viraya sat still, trying to absorb it all. My family knew parts of this, she said quietly. Not the full truth, but we were taught that humans once turned against us, that you couldn't be trusted. That was the lie, Jace replied. And they used it to justify everything. Outside the archive, the city was stirring. Ships flew low in the sky, and soldiers trained harder than usual. Something was coming. The council had increased security, and whispers of war filled the air. Jace stood slowly. The second mark on his armor still glowed, but now it felt heavier, like it wanted him to act, not just learn. We need to tell the others, he said. We need to expose the truth. They won't believe us. Viraya warned. They'll say the armor corrupted you, then let them see the memory for themselves. Jace said firmly, show it to the people. Show them who the real enemy was. As they left the archive, a low rumble shook the temple. A guard rushed in, pale with fear. Sir, you need to come to the observation tower now. They climbed quickly to the highest point of the temple. The sky was dark, not from clouds, but from ships. Black metal cruisers shaped like claws hovered just outside the planet's defense ring. Those aren't ours, Viraya whispered. That's not any council fleet I've ever seen. Jace narrowed his eyes. The armor pulsed strongly against his skin. The Forgotten Ones have returned, the armor said. The enemy we once fought together has awakened. Flashes of the battlefield came again to Jace's mind. Creatures of shadow, machines with minds. Fire raining from the sky. He had thought it was only memory. It wasn't theory. Back, Jace whispered. The real war never ended. It was just waiting. Viraya turned to him, her eyes wide and full of fear. So what do we do now? He looked at his hands, the armor crawling slightly up his fingers like it was preparing for battle. We do what the armor was made for, he said. We protect this world, not as aliens, not as humans, but together. She hesitated, then slowly nodded, and for the first time Jace saw it in her eyes. Not just worry, not just respect, but belief. Far in space, the Dark Fleet prepared to strike, but they had no idea a forgotten flame had been reignited. A spark that could turn into a firestorm, and that fire now lived in a human. Asterisk. The alien uprising begins. Asterisk. The capital city of Altherian buzzed with fear. The sky was no longer blue, but stained with the shadows of massive alien ships hovering above. The council tried to hide it, claiming it was just a training exercise, but the people knew better. Rumors spread faster than fire, and panic. Wedges stood at the highest balcony of the Flame Temple, watching it all unfold. The armor on his body was now covered in 3 glowing marks, each one a trial past, a truth revealed. The metal no longer felt foreign. It felt like skin, like purpose. Beside him, Viraya clutched a datapad, reading secret messages from within the palace. Uprisings have started in the outer sectors, she said. Groups are forming. They believe the council lied about the ancient war. Some even say you're the real heir of this world. Jace turned to her, his face calm, but his eyes full of fire. I never wanted this. I only came here to study. I didn't ask for a throne. You didn't take a throne, she said quietly. The armor gave you one. Down below, soldiers in black armor marched through the streets, arresting protesters. Anyone who even whispered about the Forbidden's history was silenced. But for everyone they took, 10 more stood up. The people were remembering that evening. Jace walked into the grand chamber, uninvited. The key Council sat in their tall chairs, staring down at him, cold and silent. Their guards raised weapons, but the armor reacted instantly, forming a shimmering barrier around him. "The armor must be removed," General Ethelyn barked. "You are a threat to the order of this planet." "The armor chose me," Jace replied. "You fear that because it proves your lies." The historian stood, his voice shaking. "The past was buried for peace, for survival." "No," Jace said, "it was buried for control. You erased my kind from history because you couldn't rule them." The council shouted, one after another, accusing him of invasion, of dishonor, of rebellion. But Jace said nothing more. He turned and left the chamber. Outside, thousands had gathered, alien citizens, young and old, some with banners that showed fire and human symbols side by side. They did not chant. They simply watched. Jace stood before them and raised one arm. The armor pulsed with golden light, and a projection formed in the sky. Above them all, the memory crystal played again. The ancient war, the betrayal, the forgotten alliance. There was no need for words. The city exploded with voices, this time not in fear, but in rage. The truth had broken free, and it could not be caged again. That night, half the planetary defense fleet stood down, refusing to fight the people. Some even flew their ships to the outer colonies to help more rise up. Jace and Varaya returned to the temple, where the armor pulsed like a living heart. The final trial was near. They both felt it, he thought. The trial was over, Varaya said quietly. "No," Jace replied. "The armor says there's one more, a war older than your council, deeper than your politics." The sky lit up with a flash. One of the enemy ships above the planet exploded. A second later, a deep hum filled the air. A fleet had arrived, but not from Altherian fair here. Varaya whispered, "The forgotten ones." Jace looked up at the sky, his eyes glowing faintly blue like the armor itself. Then it spoke again in his mind. "The final trial is not survival, it is sacrifice." The armor reshaped slightly, forming new lines, new weapons, and a golden crest at the center of Jace's chest. It was ready. It had waited long. A new Varaya stepped closer, her voice low. "I'm scared." "Me too," Jace said. "But we're not alone anymore." From the hills and from the skies came rebel ships. Pilots that once trained under the council now flew the banner of truth. Behind them marched citizens with nothing but courage and belief in their hearts, and above them all hovered a shadow too large for one man to face. But the man was not alone. He was wearing the will of 1,000 warriors. He was lit by the fire of truth. He was the spark the galaxy had tried to forget, and the uprising had just begun. The armor's final will asterisk. The sky above Altherian was no longer silent. Ships of fire and shadow moved like predators across the stars, their hulls black as obsidian, their weapons pulsing with red energy. The ancient enemy had returned, the same force that had once joined hands with humanity, only to betray it and disappear into the void. Now they were back to finish what they started. Jace stood at the edge of the flame temple's highest spire. The armor had changed again. It no longer looked like ancient relic. It had become something new. Golden lines spread across his arms. Wings of light floated behind him, not solid, but glowing like embers in motion. His face was calm, but every part of him burned with purpose. Varaya stood behind him. Her armor less powerful, but her heart steady. They had come this far together. She would not leave him now. The rebels had gathered across the city. Thousands of aliens, old and young, standing beside humans, holding old rifles, plasma tools, even farming blades. No one forced them. They came because they believed the final trial has begun. The armor whispered in Jace's thoughts. The voice was softer now, not commanding, almost proud. The armor no longer just protected him, it followed him. The dark fleet opened fire. A rain of red light fell from the sky, smashing into the city's shields. Fighters screamed through the clouds, explosions rocking the ground below. Jace looked at Varaya one last time. "Stay with them, protect them." "And you?" she asked. He smiled faintly. "I think I finally understand what the last trial really means." He stepped forward and jumped from the spire. The wind roared around him as the armor ignited, launching him into the sky like a comet of gold light wrapped around him, shielding him from the enemy fire. He flew straight at the largest ship, the heart of the enemy fleet. The armor hummed louder every second, showing him flashes of the past. Warriors long gone, leaders erased from memory, battles never recorded. And then a final message appeared in his mind from the first human who wore the flame armor centuries ago. If you are reading this, then I failed, but you didn't finish what we began. Jace burst through the enemy shield, slamming into the command vessel. His armor exploded with light-forming weapons. He didn't know he had a blade of starfire, a shield that bent gravity, a voice that shook metal. Enemy soldiers tried to stop him, but they moved too slow. He was more than human, now more than machine. He was the final echo of forgotten honor. As he reached the core of the ship, he saw it, the source of the ancient darkness. A being made of smoke and circuits, half alive, half memory. It spoke in a voice that hurt his ears. You do not belong. You... Right, Jace said. I was never supposed to, but you made sure of that. He raised his hand and the armor responded, forming a spear of molten light. He hurled it into the Korea. White light swallowed everything. From the planet below, Varaya watched the enemy fleet begin to shake. Ships cracked in half, lights blinked out. One by one they fell from the sky, burning as they descended into the ocean and far-off deserts. Then silence. Nothing moved. No voice came from Jace. No signal from his armor. He had vanished. The city waited for hours, then a day, then another. Some believed he died. Some believed he became one with the armor. A few whispered that he was still watching from the stars, waiting for the next time he would be needed. And Varaya every night stood on the spire, watching the stars with quiet hope. Weeks later, a message appeared in the sky, not from a ship, not from the council, but from the armor itself. A symbol hovered above the city. It burned with the same 3 marks Jace had earned: protection, courage, sacrifice. The people built a monument where the flame temple once stood. It held no body, no grave, only a piece of the armor glowing softly, never losing its light. And on it they wrote, he came as a visitor. He stayed as a guardian. He left as legend. The end.